Hello. So I think I figured out why you guys are seeing ads whenever I'm live on YouTube. I think when I use my computer, it automatically wants to do ads, but when I use my cell phone, it doesn't give the option to add ads. So the only problem with using my cell phone is that sometimes it doesn't upload, and when I use my laptop to go live, it uploads every time. Like, I don't have to wonder if it's going to upload, it just does. So I got this really cool portable charging thing. Hey, Linda. I got this really cool, portable charger. It's like a battery pack. It's 1,000 watts. So it's pretty nifty figuring out how to carry it because it's pretty heavy, but it works. I tried it out already on my iPhone. It did take a while to charge my iPhone, but it did charge. It just took a while. How are you guys doing? Did you have a good day? My day was good. I had a really good day. And then it started snowing, and that was so pretty. And it did not stick. So I don't have any pictures. I wanted to get pictures, but I don't have any pictures because it didn't stick. So I was kind of sad about that because I love the snow. We don't see it enough down here because, we're in South Carolina. So I don't get to see the snow a ton. And it came down pretty heavy for I want to say 2 hours. And hey, Linda. It came down for 2 hours, which was a very, very nice time, but it just didn't stick. I don't know if when it snows, if the weather or if the temperature has to be cold enough in order for it to stick, if it has to be a certain temperature. Maybe somebody else can help me with that because I don't know, but none of the snow stuck. It just came down really pretty for a couple of hours and then it was over. So now everything is just all wet outside, and it is supposed to go down to below freezing, a little below freezing. Okay, so this is the battery pack, and thank you. It is my favorite color too. Can you tell what color it is? It's I want to say like a violet color. Okay, so this is the battery pack. I'm turning it on, and it's at 100%, and it is actively charging my phone, which is so freaking cool. It's got the USB. Ooh, you know what it doesn't have? It doesn't have the an Android charger. Yeah, it's purple. It's definitely purple. It has the USB and it has the USB-C. It doesn't have one of those Android, but I guess I wouldn't need it because most of the chargers come like this, and then the other end is the one that is for Android. And it has 2 plugs in the front that have that third plug too. And then to use those, you have to actually turn this AC button on, and it'll use these. Or maybe that's like charging it fast. I don't know. I haven't figured it all out yet. I'm still figuring it out. And then you can use it on 570 watts, no, 540 or 270. So it's like, I guess I want to say it's enough that if you lost power in your house, you'd be able to use this for charging your stuff. Oh, and you can even charge it with the solar power. So that's pretty cool too. Lots of cool stuff that they make for us now. All right. So we are reading Mother Hunger, which is a book about narcissistic mothers and not getting the love that you need from your narcissistic parent. If you are interested, please hang out and listen. We are going to be... I'm the youngest sister. Let me just say this. I'm the youngest one on my mom's side. I have 2 older sisters, and I'm the most successful out of all 3 of my sisters. I get a text right now from my older sister asking me if she can have some money. No, you cannot have money, because I work for my money, and I have to work a lot for my money, and I pay all my bills. So no, I'm not just giving away money to anyone. So today we are going to be reading chapters. I think we're on 3 and 4. Excuse me. We're reading chapter 3, which is the nurturance stage of parenting. Let me see if I can play it on my iPad. Oops. So, hey lady, how you doing? Audible, where's Audible? Maybe I don't have it downloaded. Thank you for liking the live, Carolyn. I hope everyone is doing well. Did everyone have a good day? Hold on. Thank you so much, Carolyn. You are so sweet. Okay. What do you mean not available? Why wouldn't it be available for iPad? That's weird. Okay, let me download this. So if you are new to my page, I talk a lot about narcissistic personality disorder and how it affects not only you, but how it affects your relationships with other people and your parenting, and all of those things. I also go over different red flags so that if you are in a relationship or looking for a relationship, you can think about the things that are a little weird as it relates to narcissistic personality disorder, so you don't get caught up in relationships that are unhealthy. Hold on. I'm trying to sign in. Okay. Oh. Did I tell y'all my dog got kicked out of daycare? I was so disappointed. I'm so sad about it. I'm so sad about him not being able to go to daycare anymore. Ooh, this might be a good book to read. It's called Stop Walking on Eggshells. Maybe we can look at that after we get through my library of books that we are already on. Okay.
Nurturance is the first essential element that babies need from a primary caregiver in order to build a secure foundation for life.
Ooh, that's nice and loud.
Nurturance is the nonverbal language that tells a newborn, I love you and I'm here. Merriam-Webster defines nurture as caring for and encouraging the growth or development of someone or something.
Can you hear that?
It comes from the Latin word nutrire, which means to suckle and to nourish. I like to think of nurturing as nursing. Nursing means tending to the needs of someone who is dependent. Perhaps this explains why we generally associate nurturance with women, because we can breastfeed our infants. However, men can nurture babies too. Both men and women have oxytocin receptors that facilitate bonding behavior. To understand how mother hunger begins, let's look deeper into what nurturance means. Nurturance is the quality of responsive care between an infant and her primary adult. Nurturance is touching, holding, feeding, soothing, grooming, and responding. Nurturance is the language of love. The infant brain learns by what it feels. Nurturance is critical in the first 1,000 days when the baby's brain is experiencing the most rapid brain growth. Nurturance is the foundation for secure attachment and brain health. Nurturance is basic to all mammals. From the moment of birth, mothers in all shapes and sizes cuddle, lick, nudge, and nurse their young. At birth, the baby knows her mother's voice and prefers it to all others. While she recognizes other familiar sounds and voices, amniotic fluid has muffled them for 9 months. They are the background with a clear connection with her mother's voice. In the first 1,000 days of life, early nurturance from a mother sets up how a newborn's emotional, mental, and physical development will unfold. Nurturing magic. The tender moments and months after birth are so critical that infant experts refer to this as the 4th trimester. In the 4th trimester, the 3 months immediately following childbirth, mom and baby need life to slow down. This tender time should be considered part of pregnancy because the infant brain is growing at an astounding rate, and the fertilizer is maternal nurturance. For both the mother and the child, during the first 90 days of infant life outside the womb, eye contact, skin-to-skin touch, and smelling each other intensifies the production of bonding hormones, shaping both their brains. Touch is so important during this time that Yale pediatrician Matthew Grossman changed the standard of care he used for babies born dependent on opioids. Instead of treating these babies with morphine and leaving them alone, which is the traditional standard of care and can take weeks, he kept them near the mother, allowing skin-to-skin contact to soothe the withdrawal process.
That's interesting.
Babies in his care left the hospital sooner than those receiving pharmacological treatment.
That's really
In the
interesting,
months
isn't
after
it?
birth, mom and baby are falling in love. Skin-to-skin contact boosts oxytocin, sometimes known as the love hormone. This is nature's design for human survival. For some, the bond can be instant. For others, it builds gently and gradually over time. Separation between mom and baby is risky during the fourth trimester, or infatuation phase. For the baby, early loss of maternal proximity is encoded as a deep threat. Separation from the mother is the primary cause of newborn stress and may show itself in increased heart rate and blood pressure and decreased oxygen saturation in the blood. Parents carrying their little ones in slings aren't simply making a fashion statement. They're oxytocin generating factories. The more touch and proximity between the two, the more oxytocin. Research shows us that infants who are regularly touched have bigger, better brains than those who aren't. Oxytocin creates a biological reaction in the mother that can help decrease anxiety and diminishes the need to get busy. Oxytocin helps her want to interact with her infant and meet her needs. Nature designs bonding to feel good and slow us down. Oxytocin floods us during moments like breastfeeding, childbirth, holding, and orgasm.
Oh, wow.
These are moments that are all enhanced by stillness, moments designed for bonding. Oxytocin helps couples linger after a sexual encounter. Oxytocin makes mothers want to hold their babies. Oxytocin lets someone else clean up the kitchen. Unfortunately, many people aren't aware of the magnificent hormone or how to maximize it. New mothers who frequently put babies in cribs or bouncers instead of holding them may miss out on nature's magic bonding formula. Well-meaning staff or family who separate mother and baby, quote, so she can rest, end of quote, are disrupting this critical bonding hormone. Policies that only allow 6 weeks away from work for a mother are disastrous for the bonding process. Mom and baby need to stay close to each other in a cocoon of neurohormones for as long as possible. Much like the first rush of romantic love, newborn infatuation serves a larger purpose: to securely bond these two and set the stage for optimal attachment in the first 3 years. A primary caregiver needs a lot of support in the early months and years. In other words, mothers need mothering. Lack of understanding about how much support the primary caregiver needs puts both mother and child at risk. Traditionally, women would have been supported by other women from our communities. However, in the modern world, we tend to live spread out and separated, and this kind of support is rare now. A postpartum doula is one way to buffer this overwhelming period. When a mother has someone devoted to feeding her, caring for other family members, doing household chores, she can focus on bonding. In addition to oxytocin, after childbirth, new mother's pituitary gland releases prolactin. Prolactin is the milk production hormone.
Oh, okay.
Each time the baby nurses, nipple stimulation releases prolactin, bringing on intense emotions of love, devotion, and relaxation. Infant suckling also stimulates hormones that give the mother a sense of contentment. In the baby, these same hormones aid digestion. Babies know how much suckling they need. Sometimes it's about hunger, other times it's for comfort. For this reason, I like the term nursing better than breastfeeding. Nursing is nurturing. Nursing includes cuddling, eye contact, rocking, singing, and bottle feeding.
My daughter loved
Anything that keeps
nursing.
oxytocin flowing and allows bonding and attachment to progress. The science of nursing or breastfeeding is amazing, but make no mistake, it can be hard. Some of the challenges of breastfeeding, like milk ducts, lack of support, difficulty latching on, make it difficult to persevere. Mothers who are able to nurse need time, patience, and support to learn how to tune in to baby-led cues. Feeling pressure to complete other duties or return to work threatens the critical bonding process that mother and baby need. Learning from animals. Infant care should be instinctive, but unfortunately, generations of women without adequate nurturance struggle to access nature's design. Modern parenting experts don't help. Many are misguiding parents, suggesting strategies that put babies and children at risk for unnecessary adversity, specifically too much maternal separation. To counter poor guidance, we can learn much about infant care from studying animals. Researchers and scientists study mice, rats, furry voles, sheep, monkeys, and other mammals that have brain structures similar to ours to better understand our primal needs for maternal belonging and protection. Like other mammals, human babies use sound, smell, and touch to identify their mother and prefer her to anyone else. Maternal mammals stay close to their young, clean them, protect them from harm. Baby animals are not left alone to cry it out unless something terrible has happened to the mother. Michael J. Meany's research with mother rats and their pups shows that offspring are heavily influenced by maternal care. When mother rats frequently lick and groom their pups, genes turn on that protect the little animals from future stress.
That's so
This
interesting.
early maternal protection lasts into adulthood. When the babies are deprived of such care, however, the same genes remain dormant. Thus, early maternal care permanently alters brain regions
Wow.
that regulate stress reactivity.
I'm going to pause this for a
Meany's
second. Did you guys know that? That is so interesting, I think.
Research mirrors findings from the World Health Organization's review of the importance of early caregivers to infant and child growth and development. Meany's research has huge implications for understanding how disturbances in bonding can trickle intergenerationally between mothers and their daughters. He found that early maternal separation hampered the female pup's future ability to nurture their own offspring. Babies of mothers who were licked more and nursed more not only showed significantly more capacity to manage stress, but they also nurtured their own babies in the same way, and romantic relationships throughout life. Research on what occurs when young children are placed in institutions also provides powerful evidence of the importance of supportive and stable caregiver-child relationships for the health of young children and their cognitive and social development. Young children in group care often fail to thrive. They tend to be sickly, they're more demanding of attention, and they find it difficult to have normal peer relationships with other children.
Wow.
Studies have shown that nurturing touch may be as necessary as food for infant survival. Many of you are likely familiar with Harry Harlow's famous work with the rhesus monkeys. Harlow removed baby monkeys from their mothers, dividing them into two groups. One group received a wire stand-in mother with a milk bottle. The other group received a soft cloth-covered stand-in mother with a milk bottle. The infant spent more time with the soft mother, whether feeding or not. Harlow tried removing the milk bottle from the cloth mother to see if the babies would prefer the wire mother who still offered milk. But after feeding, these babies returned to the soft surrogate mother.
Wow.
Harlow's study also revealed that infants relied on the soft cloth mother for comfort. If she was there, the baby monkeys were curious and content. But when she was removed, the little monkeys were paralyzed, huddled in a ball, sucking their
Aw.
thumbs.
So sad.
Epigenetic influences. Dr. Rachel Yehuda, the director of traumatic stress studies at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York, found that children of Holocaust survivors share post-traumatic stress symptomology with their parents and grandparents. Yehuda also discovered that babies born to mothers who developed PTSD after the World Trade Center attacks shared symptoms of toxic distress, such as being easily disturbed by loud noises and unfamiliar people. As most epigenetic transmission is matrilineal, this research helps us understand how a mother's emotions can find their way to her children.
This is interesting.
According to Bruce Lipton, Stanford Medical School researcher and scholar, quote, the mother's emotions, such as fear, anger, love, and hope, among others, can biochemically alter the genetic expression of the offspring. End of quote.
We kind of knew that already.
Lipton and Yehuda's research has vast implications for understanding mother hunger. Even if your mother very much wanted to be able to nurture, protect, and guide you, her unhealed anxieties or dashed hopes may have left an imprint on your soul. You could be carrying sadness or anger that began with your mother or your grandmother.
Wow.
Quote, when your grandmother was 5 months pregnant with your mother, the precursor cell of the egg you developed from was already present in your mother's ovaries. This means before your mother was even born, your mother, your grandmother, and the earliest traces of you were all in the same body.
Wow.
Epigenetics refers to a modification of gene expression rather than a change in the actual genetic code. Culture, diet, and lifestyle can alter gene expression. Gene alterations pass from mother to daughter to granddaughter and adapt to the environment. Since your biological mother was your first environment, if she was stressed, ambivalent, overwhelmed, or carrying her own unhealed trauma, you may have inherited feelings of anxiety or dread before life experience taught you to feel this way. Nighttime parenting. Mothers crave their babies for a reason. Closeness ensures the best chance of infant survival. This is our mammal brain and body in action. Babies who don't get enough time with their primary caregiver are vulnerable. In the succinct words of Erica Komisar, quote, our denial of the very specific and special physical and emotional role of a mother and her child, particularly in our attempt to be modern, is not in the best interest of children and their needs. End of quote. Mothers are bombarded with misguided advice about infant and young children's needs, especially sleep. For an infant or toddler, falling asleep is a moment of separation, and it must be understood this way. Infants have not changed since we were hunting and gathering, but our mothers somehow expect babies to sleep alone in cribs for extended hours. Only recently, the science that supports keeping mom and baby close during sleep is gaining recognition. We are learning, or relearning, about infant sleep and how normal it is for babies to wake frequently. They're designed to feel the nearness of the mother's body in order to feel calm and avoid unnecessary hormones that the body releases when it senses danger. Breastfed babies benefit from frequent feedings throughout the night, so the closer they are to mom, the easier it is for both. To a baby, separation from the mother's body means danger. Too many parents don't realize how damaging hours of separation can be for dependent newborns. Erica Commissar explains in detail the benefits for both mother and child to sleep close to one another, in the same room or bed, within sensory recognition of one another, for up to 6 months or a year. Commissar says that nighttime security is even more important than daytime security, especially when a mother's been gone all day. In his book, Nighttime Parenting,
Both of my kids slept in the bed with me. Well, not like in the bed, but I had one of those little bassinets that you can put right next to the bed. And that's how my son slept if he didn't sleep like exactly on me. And then whenever I had my daughter, sometimes she slept in the bed with me because she nursed for a while. My son did too. They both nursed. But she seemed to eat more frequently than he did. So sometimes I would fall asleep and it was just easier for her to be in the bed with me. With him, I didn't really know that you could like fall asleep while you were nursing. So I was a little hesitant to fall asleep. So I stayed up the entire time. And sometimes he would be eating for like, I don't know, an hour and a half sometimes each feeding. So
Dr. William Sears explains how and why babies sleep differently than adults. Little ones are designed for survival, so they wake easily to co-regulate themselves with their mother. Sears explains that infants who wake up alone feel startled as they search for their mother. Increased adrenaline and heart rate lead to crying and difficulty going back to sleep. Sears explains that infants who co-sleep rarely cry during the night and have less nighttime anxiety. And as adults, they experience fewer sleep disturbances than adults who slept alone as infants. With the exception of children whose
What's up?
caregivers abuse alcohol and nicotine,
hold on, I can.
babies build a robust physiology through closeness with their parents during the night. For example, since newborns can't regulate their own body temperature, babies who co-sleep have more stable body temperatures. Additionally, carbon dioxide exhaled by the parent stimulates a baby's breathing patterns, and infants sleeping near their mothers have fewer pauses in breathing compared to babies who sleep alone. Both Dr. James McKenna, infant sleep researcher at Notre Dame and author of Safe Infant Sleep, and Dr. Sears point to low incidence of sudden infant death syndrome in countries where co-sleeping is the norm. Dr. McKenna points to 45 to 60 million years of primate evolution and suggests that, quote, Euro-American infant care practices and our infants' ability to accommodate these practices suggest that we are pushing infant adaptability and indeed maternal adaptability too far, with deleterious consequences for short-term survival and long-term health, end of quote. Dr. McKenna explains that recommendations from authorities who claim that co-sleeping is unsafe are based on the few parents who irresponsibly handle nighttime care for their babies. This is like saying that because a few people don't manage their credit cards, no one should be allowed to have a credit card. In his opinion, committed, careful parents are disregarded when sleep recommendations are made. Dr. McKenna's guidelines state that room sharing can be a safe, simple form of co-sleeping because primary caregiver and baby stay within sensory range of each other. Quote, this form of co-sleeping is safe for all families and would be, in my mind, the preferred and default sleeping arrangement, especially for non-breastfeeding infants, end of quote. Clearly, the physical and social conditions surrounding infants and caregivers determine how risky or beneficial co-sleeping is and what kind of co-sleeping to try. emphasis on try because learning how everyone gets a good night's sleep is a process. It takes creativity and experimentation. Many experts agree that sharing sleep space benefits the bonding process, which could explain why Dr. Sears has found that parents who embrace nighttime parenting create children with higher self-esteem, less anxiety, ease with affection, and increased independence.
Well, that's good.
Birth. Childbirth is a profound experience for a woman, opening a psychic portal into deeper parts of herself. If her own early experiences with her biological mother were positive, feelings of joy may flood her body and brain as she brings forth new life. She's psychologically and biologically ready for bonding. Just the opposite may happen for a woman who experienced inadequate or harmful early care. When a woman gives birth, the amygdala, brain area responsible for regulating fear response and stress, naturally lights up. It comes online and stays online to keep a mother alert to her baby's needs. For women with untreated mother hunger who are already overly alert, this increased amygdala response can set off a cascade of panic during the early bonding months, severely compromising maternal mental health. Vulnerable and raw, these women tend toward elevated sensations of loneliness, despair, and boredom in the early days with their newborns. Dark emotions and hypervigilance interfere with bonding and unveil the story of a mother's own early moments of life. Childbirth itself can also be traumatic for mothers and babies. In hospitals, nurturance may get derailed by a medical emergency that requires early separation between mother and baby. Feeding difficulties are likely when this happens, and that adds stress to an already vulnerable time. A detailed exploration of birth trauma is beyond the scope of our conversation, but I will note that postpartum distress intensifies when birth and delivery are traumatic. Additionally, postpartum distress can escalate when a new mother is estranged from her own mother or has a mother who is unsupportive or no longer living. In these cases, the most important source of comfort during this rite of passage is lost. In my opinion, unidentified and untreated mother hunger may be a leading cause of postpartum depression and anxiety. Separation. During the 3 months following pregnancy, mothers experience intense emotions that come with lactation, recovery from childbirth, and all the many changes of motherhood. One of the best remedies for maternal anxiety and distress during this time is physical proximity with her infant. Close skin-to-skin contact boosts hormones that soothe and regulate both mom and baby, buffering their anxiety and stress. Mothers separated from their infants miss out on critical skin contact that would increase milk supply and promote relaxation. Extra care and support are essential for both babies and mothers during this time, so they can spend as much time together as possible. The competing needs of other children, financial pressures, work schedules, medical emergencies, and unsupportive partners may require too much separation between a mother and her newborn, interfering with early bonding and ongoing attachment needs, and creating lifelong physical and psychological consequences for both. What constitutes too much separation? Erica Komisar has interesting insights about mother-infant separations. She states that the most painful times for young children are the comings and goings of their mothers. Babies need security, consistency, and predictability from their mothers, especially during times of transition, such as waking up, going down for and waking up from a nap, moving to and from daycare or preschool, and switching from playtime to bath time, from bath time to dinner time, from dinner time to bedtime. The dominant culture assigns a higher value to work outside the home than to mothering, leaving women torn when it comes to how to have both. It's not uncommon for mothers to feel confused about priorities, how to manage time away from their children, or even how to make their children proud. This is completely understandable, but it's important to keep the early years out of this thought process. Little ones just want their mother's presence. They don't care about her resume. It's safe to say the separations that regularly create infant distress are problematic. Nothing prepares an infant for the isolation of a crib when she's used to the sound of her mother's heartbeat.
I would have
Babies
never
don't
thought about
understand
that.
that mom needs to go on a business trip or that she promised dad a date night. When a baby is separated from her mother for too long, unless there is a nurturing, familiar caregiver to take her place, the primitive brain registers a threat, and the infant brain learns from what it feels. A baby without her mother may feel a threatening loss that jumpstarts her nervous system by
Wow.
releasing adrenaline. Crying, shaking, or screaming are signs of a distressed baby with too much adrenaline in her system. This is an infant in a fight or flight state. Fight or flight hormones are not meant for babies. But extended separations from familiar arms will initiate these powerful neurochemicals. It's a travesty of medicine that some experts warn parents that crying babies are being manipulative. Ignorance like this may account for the widespread number of adults.
Have you heard that babies know how to manipulate their parents? I don't think I've ever heard that. But it is an interesting concept that somebody could raise the point that babies know how to cry and manipulate to get what they want. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. I tend to think that the babies aren't yet smart enough to know how to manipulate. They cry because they need something, and obviously they're going to keep crying until they get what it is that they need, whether that is comfort, bottle fed, changed, you know, stomach irritation, whatever. They're crying because that's their only form of communication, right?
With insecure attachment. The most natural way that we humans calm down our distress is by being touched, hugged, and rocked. This makes us feel safe, intact, protected, and in charge. Encouraging parents to leave babies and children alone to self-soothe defies nature's design. We're created for connection. Self-soothing is an advanced skill that comes later and flows naturally after bonding is secure. When mothers and caregivers embrace the power of nurturance and the essential timing of the early years, their emotional and physical presence builds secure attachment and fills the space where mother hunger might grow. Here's an exercise for reclaiming nurturance. You can start healing touch deprivation anytime you're ready. Imagine the way you would have liked your mother to touch you as a child. Would she stroke your hair? Maybe scratch your back? Maybe you would have liked her to sit quietly near you or by your side. You can practice warm self-touch to soothe and reclaim lost maternal nurturance. I find Reiki useful to start with, especially when you aren't sure about doing something like this. If your own touch is overstimulating, try gentle movement with a lightweight scalp massager or a dry brush until you feel more comfortable with regular self-nurturance.
I have to admit that nurturance and like comfort and touch is not something that I'm particularly used to because I didn't receive that whenever I was younger. So, preparing myself for something like this and actually doing it myself is definitely going to take some practice because like whenever I cry or get upset or whatever, I'm so used to just like moving on with it. I don't really um I've never really had somebody to give me a hug and tell me like it's going to be okay. Hey, and so it's definitely going to take some practice for sure.
Here's a Reiki practice to try at night when you get in bed or when you have time and space that feels safe. To begin, sit or lie down and rub your hands together until you feel the warmth that comes from the energy inside you. Wait for a tingling sensation. When you have it, place both hands at the crown of your head, lightly hovering over your skull, maybe touching your skull. Wait there while the tingling falls like rain over your head. Enjoy this sensation. Notice the warmth at the crown of your head.
I do.
When the warmth in your hands cools, rub them together again and hover your palms over your closed eyes. With your hands lightly touching each other, place one hand over each eye. Feel the warmth.
I do.
Is it stronger than at the crown of your head or less so?
It's about the same.
When the energy cools, move on to the neck and throat area. Notice how your neck responds to the warmth of your hands. Do you feel any emotions bubbling up? It can feel awkward to not know exactly where to place your hands. Don't worry. This is a practice, and it doesn't need to be perfect. If you are a visual learner, there's a helpful diagram put out by the Cleveland Clinic illustrating the sequence of Reiki positions.
I'll find it and I'll post it to
You
my
can
community
continue now
page.
down your spine, laying your hands over your abdomen and then your pelvis, noticing the emotions that come from each chakra as you pay attention to yourself. You may want to cry. You might feel calm. You may fall asleep before you finish. Notice if you get irritated or bored with this exercise.
I'll
Collect
do
that
it whenever
information.
I'll do it whenever we're
Keep
done with the
trying
live.
self-touch in small doses when you can. With time and practice, you can change your body's response to touch and reduce your cravings for unhealthy substitutes. Chapter 4, Surrogate Comfort. What happens when maternal care is unavailable or compromised? Missing maternal care demands a substitute, someone who can take over as primary caregiver. When a sensitive and reliable alternate caregiver is available, such as a partner, a full-time nanny, or a grandparent, infants and toddlers can benefit from relational security even when their mothers aren't available. But if an adult who can meet the needs for nurturance and protection is not available, resilient little ones must cope with distressing changes that come with life outside the womb on their own. They find other ways to feel secure, even when they aren't. They soothe themselves. They find surrogates for missing maternal love. In the words of Tara Brach, meditation teacher, author, and psychologist, quote, "When we have unmet needs, we're wired to meet them in another way."
I can
End of
believe
quote.
that.
Most of the time, the personality and behavioral adaptations that fill in for compromised mothering happen so young that no one notices. Leading busy lives, well-meaning parents may miss the signs that their babies are learning to distrust human connection. What is a good baby? Babies who don't cry or fuss are often called good babies. Good babies sleep through the night and don't bother their caregivers. I feel sad when I hear parents speak this way.
Oh, me too.
Sleep patterns have nothing to do with being a good or bad baby. Infant cries aren't signs of poor character. Biology fuels crying to bring a caregiver close. Babies cry because this is how they communicate.
See what I was just saying?
Communication is central to bonding, and bonding is core to survival. While some babies are born with a peaceful or quiet temperament, the idea that a good baby is a quiet baby is uninformed and unkind. Expecting a baby to sleep a full night without needing her mother is an unfortunate misunderstanding of infant development and parental responsiveness. While many newborns sleep a lot in the first 4 to 6 weeks, most will fuss and cry more as they acclimate to life outside the womb and need more support to fall asleep. Babies aren't designed to sleep like adults. It's natural for them to wake frequently for food or comfort. Without any training, babies fall asleep when they're tired. Sleep, like hunger, is natural. When a baby is hungry or lonely, she cries. While crying, she experiences a rapid increase in heartbeat and release of adrenaline. Adrenaline, or epinephrine, helps start nature's fight or flight response. In adults, this looks like driving to a restaurant, foraging in the refrigerator, or calling a friend to talk. In babies, it looks like crying. Nature prompts us for action with powerful neurochemicals. A responsive mother brings relief before her baby gets too elevated. If not, infant protest efforts increase. She starts to cry louder. This is biology in action, not a willful baby. Babies without sensitive, responsive nurturance may eventually stop crying when they need something. Constant crying is too hard on a vulnerable little body. Crying cessation is an example of adapting to compromised care. So it's possible that a quiet baby might be a resigned baby. Infants who experience a routine lack of responsiveness, as in the case of sleep training that separates an infant from her mother or uses the cry it out method, will eventually stop crying. Sleep training may certainly teach a baby to be quiet, but it has nothing to do with attachment or nurturance. Nurturance, the most primitive human need for healthy development, requires responsive, sensitive care so that human connection feels natural and development is optimal. Nurturance and sleep training are not compatible. Isolating a baby to put her to sleep is the opposite of nurturance. Sleep training experts argue that infants can self-soothe, but they demonstrate a profound lack of neurobiological accuracy. This is such harmful information for new parents who are trying to do the right thing for their little ones. Infants can't self-soothe. Self-soothing is a sophisticated higher function that develops much later in life.
Yeah,
In
some
fact,
adults can't even
most adults
self-soothe.
can't self-soothe. And why do adults who prefer sleeping with a partner expect a baby to sleep alone?
Right. I sleep with my
Anything that
dog.
looks like self-soothing, such as thumb sucking, is purely autoregulation, a scientific term for coping with isolation. Self-soothing or autoregulation is what we do in a pinch. It's not designed to be a substitute for a relationship. And sleep trainers don't tell parents how to stop their little one's self-soothing behaviors in a kind, respectful way when it's time. Experts don't alert parents they will need to step up nurturant efforts when they take away the self-soothing object or try to stop the autoregulating behavior. I have so many painful examples from grown women who remember how they were shamed for sucking their thumb when it was time to go to school. I've learned how common it is for women to keep their first baby blanket or stuffed animal if they're able to.
My kids still have
Often parents
theirs.
hide or throw away these early attachment substitutes in an attempt to make their child more independent, which is simply uninformed and heartbreaking, and leaves a deep mark of mistrust. Countless times, I hear women share the story they were told by mom or dad, quote, "I don't know what happened to your teddy, or blanket, or doll." But they felt it was a lie. The simmering hurt and anger is still very much alive decades later as they share the memory of this loss. Expecting a baby to self-soothe may have more to do with parents needing a break or cultural expectations for American parents than a baby's well-being. This is understandable. Infant care is challenging, frustrating, and hard. So while taking a shortcut makes sense, it may backfire. Isolation to train a baby to go to sleep puts incredible pressure on the developing nervous system that needs human connection for comfort.
Love you.
Too much self-soothing sets up a need for other autoregulatory substitutes: sugar, alcohol, fantasy, sex, as a child grows up, because she is learning that she must meet her own needs instead of resting in the comfort of her caregiver. When separation happens too often and too long, the infant's body understands that things are really bad, and the freeze response, designed to buffer pain and fear, takes over. The freeze response is a step down the brainstem from protest efforts like crying or screaming. When this lower system is engaged, the baby gets quiet and sleepy. Breathing slows down. Her body may sag, and she may appear visibly resigned. A freeze response might look like a good baby, but it is really a baby learning to give up. She is learning that her needs won't be met and that human connection can't be trusted.
That's terrible.
This painful lesson won't unfold well as she gains maturity. Mother hunger begins. When we are
I need
helpless
to go get a
infants,
pencil sharpener.
hunger pains drive us toward our mother. She is our relief. Completely dependent on her care, we talk to her with our whole body. We squirm, or whimper, or cry. This is nature's way of bringing mom close. When she responds with milk and warmth, all is well. Milk and mother bring pleasure, and we learn a full belly, our mother's touch, her voice, and her smell are the same. This is how human connection gets associated with pleasure, so that we want more of it. Hunger and bonding are inextricably biologically linked. Categorically, women with mother hunger struggle with both food and relationships. I've never seen one problem without the other. It's just a matter of which hurts more. From early nurturance experiences, food and love become linked in implicit memory. Think of the last time you were really hungry. What did it feel like? How long could you tolerate hunger pains before you got something to eat? Hunger hurts. The pain comes out of nowhere, from deep inside, a place you can't see. Hunger pains get your attention. Adrenaline prompts you into action, so you find food. If hunger cries were often ignored during your infancy or toddler years, or your mom didn't enjoy feeding you, or the others who fed you didn't really know how, the pleasure of bonding was compromised. Warm satisfaction and pleasure may be linked for you with the physical sensation of fullness, but not with human contact. Food brings relief from
Hey,
pain,
Laurel.
but a relationship doesn't. This is how we fall in love with food. Inadequate nurturance. Josie was put in her big sister's bedroom right after she was born. Her big sister was only 10 years old, but it was her job to mix the formula,
Wow.
heat the bottles, and feed Josie
I'm
throughout the
good.
night.
How are you?
While a big sister might enjoy this for a night or two, a 10-year-old is still a child who needs sleep. A 10-year-old can't substitute for a mother.
Not at all.
Do you know why this was your sister's job? I asked Josie.
Kimber,
She
go lay
wasn't
down.
sure. I was the last of 6, so
Lay
maybe
down.
Mom and Dad didn't want me? There it is. The implicit belief a child creates when maternal nurturance is inadequate. I'm not wanted. This belief becomes part of her internal, unconscious love map that will guide her life and self-image. In Janine Roth's transformative book, When Food is Love, she states that, quote, many of us have been using food to replace love for so many years that we wouldn't recognize love if it knocked us over, end of quote. Roth links the powerful connection between food and love that is intrinsic to mother hunger. This connection is so strong, not because food is actually love, but because it's our first experience of love. When maternal nurturance is compromised, food provides the first sense of real comfort. Food rescues a hungry heart. Perhaps this explains why, for many of us, eating is much more than a simple response to being hungry. We
That
eat when
makes
we're
sense.
lonely, stressed, or afraid.
Bored.
We eat when we're bored, tired, or ashamed. Eating rituals are windows into the soul. If you want to know yourself more deeply, notice how and when you eat. Women with mother hunger are conflicted about eating because maternal deprivation required substitute comfort. Some avoid meals and restrict calories to feel strong, visible, or safe. Starving is one of the most basic ways to compensate for feeling helpless. Others are more inclined to overindulge, following the inner voice promising that pizza will make everything okay. Overeating and undereating are effective ways to mask internal distress and numb the void where maternal nurturance fell short. Eating as language. Hunger is a human experience. So are hunger pains. Women without maternal nurturance grow up hungry for both love and food and frequently confuse the two.
Yep.
In fact, loneliness triggers brain cravings similar to physical hunger. I look at maladaptive eating habits as signals of wordless despair. Eating patterns tell the story of early attachment, so I pay attention. Stacy Sprout, clinician and author of Naked in Public, beautifully captures how she found a surrogate for missing maternal nurturance. Quote, food became my comfort, my pleasure, my stand-in for affection and touch. Touch on the inside. Touch I could control. End of quote. Stacy's words reflect the way food becomes a primary relationship.
Laurel, you weren't here for the last chapter. The last chapter was nurturance. It's going to be posted on my YT channel. If you want to watch, if you want to listen to that chapter made a lot of sense as well. I have not read the Chris Watts book. If you want to go back and read the Nurturance chapter, it's really informative. So much great information about how mothers and babies connect, and just a lot of information. It's hard for me to recap because there's just so much good information in the chapter.
Standing in for maternal care. Similarly, in the powerful memoir Hunger, Roxane Gay discusses the connection between food and love. She shares how
I didn't even know, Linda, I didn't even know there was a book about Chris Watts.
visiting her family triggers powerful cravings for food. Quote, I am so much more hungry when I am home. I'm starving. I'm an animal. I am desperate to be fed. End of quote. For so many of the women I work with, returning home stirs up longing, anger, and hunger. It's as if being close to mom again reminds the body of rejection and longing. Gay says, quote, I start to crave foods, any foods. I get uncontrollable urges to binge, to satisfy the growing ache, to fill the hollowness of feeling alone around people who are supposed to love me. End of quote. Escape Act. Nadine was often frightened as a little girl. She grew up in a home with two parents and an older brother. Her father was always angry, and her brother was a bully, and her mother was too distracted to pay attention. Nadine remembers mealtimes as particularly miserable. She remembers her father criticizing her mother and the food. At the table, he preferred silence. If anyone spoke, his anger became aggressive. Nadine's brother usually provoked a fight, and her mother often left the table in tears. Nadine just wished everyone would be quiet so her father wouldn't get mad at her brother or make her mother cry. To cope with distress, she focused on her plate. She kept her eyes on the food. When I asked her to remember how the food tasted, she said, I liked it. If I tried hard enough, I could almost forget anyone was there. Nadine was a resourceful little girl. She found a way to soothe her fear. Focusing on eating calmed her nervous system. But over time, this practice became somewhat automatic. In essence, Nadine learned to isolate herself into a food trance, a zone where nothing else existed except the food on her plate. Nadine's strategy for regulating fear followed her into adulthood. As a mother now herself, Nadine still prefers to eat alone. She prepares her food and takes it to her room. Her children eat alone in their rooms with computers and phones for company, and her husband does the same. Food and technology replace human connection in this family, mimicking the isolation of Nadine's original home. Food is a powerfully effective way to regulate emotions when human connection can't. In my experience, helping women rearrange the primitive food bond that serves as a stand-in for early maternal care takes incredible respect and time. This makes sense if we understand that overeating and undereating are in fact related to the fight or flight response.
I didn't know that.
A way to escape pain. Unable to leave the family table or caught with a secret sugar supply, some girls discover very young that food provides a virtual escape from intolerable feelings. Food plans generally don't work because rules feel like deprivation and trigger this primary loss. We know that food and nurturance are connected. When a friend is sick, we offer food. To celebrate a holiday or an accomplishment, we share a meal. But lack of early nurturance distorts the connection between food and bonding, leading to what Alexander Katahakis calls, quote, comfort without contact strategy. Comfort without contact, or self-soothing, is what babies learn when there is too much maternal deprivation. And this is why sleep training is so risky and can be a setup for mother hunger to grow. As a child matures, food replaces thumb sucking or finger chewing. Food trance. Maladaptive eating becomes a non-relational habit that fills in for inadequate maternal nurturance. Restricting or overindulging is about longing, a longing to be cherished and safe. Both eating habits are forms of the fight or flight response. Without a sense of safety and belonging, fear is ever present. So undereating or overeating are ways to numb fear when there's nowhere to go. When food replaces maternal care, self-development may stop. Hidden beneath the urge to eat or starve is a little one waiting for love and protection. As well-practiced adults, women eat or restrict food in a mild trance, without any awareness of their childhood fear fueling the food bond. Maladaptive food patterns may continue as if they belong to someone else. Here's how one client, Debbie, experienced it. In the middle of the night, a different part of me comes out. She crawls into the kitchen, stuffs herself with anything she can find, and goes back to bed. In the morning, I feel sick and puffy, and sometimes I can't remember why until I go into the kitchen and find the mess. For Debbie, late night eating happens as if she's in a trance. Currently separated from her spouse of 32 years, she's living alone for the first time in her life. At night, unhealed childhood fears wake her up from nightmares, sweating and shaking. Together, we've been exploring how this happens. Debbie grew up with a needy mother who could be very cold and critical. Debbie did everything she could to please her, but it never seemed to be enough. One moment she was her mother's best friend, and the next she somehow made her mad. Never sure why, she remembers the torture of her mother's punitive, stony silence that seemed to last for days. As a little girl, Debbie spent hours alone in her room, hiding under the covers, waiting to be forgiven for whatever she had done wrong. And she ate. She kept a secret stash of crackers, chocolate, and gummies in her closet behind her raincoat where no one ever looked. It was her own pharmacy. Now, at age 54, Debbie feels the same desperation she experienced as a little girl. She's losing her marriage, has few friends, and worries constantly about her children and grandchildren. But she explains to me that her biggest source of pain is her relationship with food and how much she hates her body. Quote, I will never be happy until I lose weight. It's the only thing that really matters. I think about it all day, every day. End of quote. Debbie's internal warfare makes sense to me. It's easier to fight with food than face mother hunger. Like many adult women, Debbie designed her life to please her mother. She went to the school her mother chose, she married the man her mother wanted her to, and she stayed in her mother's hometown. When Debbie had her own children, she trained them to behave so her mother would be proud. And still, her mother was unhappy. As a dutiful daughter, Debbie never got angry with her mother. Instead, she ate. Debbie's treatment with me began a year after her mother died, which is very common. Facing this work is sometimes impossible with a living mother. Currently, Debbie is coming to terms with the depth of sadness and anger she feels about her life. Although her mother is no longer living, Debbie still feels like a bad girl. Her whole body reacts as if she is betraying her mother by telling me about her childhood. Her face flushes, she squirms and looks away. These are normal reactions many women experience as they remember maternal deprivation and begin to tell the truth. When Debbie shares about eating and body hatred, I'm reminded of Janine Roth's words, quote, "We treat our bodies as if they are the enemy, as if deprivation, punishment, and shame lead to change." End of quote. The change Debbie needs is not really about food. As mother hunger heals and her core wound is addressed, Debbie is naturally losing the weight that made her body uncomfortable. As she faces grief, receives support, and replaces lost maternal care, her body is becoming her home. In the supplemental PDF, there's a questionnaire that makes the connection between nurturance, food, and love more concrete. The rest of this audiobook will be more meaningful if you take a few minutes to write your responses. If this feels too difficult, trust that and wait until you are with a safe friend or your therapist to do this exercise. Nurturance through touch. Babies need maternal affection the way plants need water. Without it, they wilt. If mom is not nurturing, resourceful infants and girls find other ways to meet this primal need. Little girls are comfort-seeking missiles, and if they are lucky, they cuddle safely with siblings, other mothers, fathers, grandparents, stuffed animals, and pets. Someone or something soft and warm. As a little girl, Caroline's mother would not let her have a stuffed animal to sleep with.
Why?
Quote, "I hated nighttime. It was too dark. I was so scared. She wouldn't let me have a nightlight or a stuffed animal because she said it would make me too needy."
Ah,
End of quote.
what a bitch.
Caroline's mother, like many misguided parents, was afraid of making her daughter too dependent. But forcing a child to be independent is futile. It simply doesn't work. Independence grows from a secure, safe maternal connection. Caroline didn't have this. She remembers the loneliness of her bed and her longing for comfort. She sucked her thumb. She stroked her pillow. She fantasized about being rescued. In Being There, Erica Komisar writes about the importance of transitional objects. Quote, "Respect your child's needs for blankets, stuffed animals, and or pets."
Katrina, I'm reading the book called Mother Hunger, and it's about how adult daughters can understand and heal from lost nurturance and guidance and protection from their mother.
Pacifiers, which represent you and the security you provide in your absence.
It's really good.
If your child naturally takes to a transitional object, it will be easier for you to leave for short periods of time. End of quote. Touch deprivation. Lack of maternal nurturance leads to touch deprivation. Touch deprivation has a mind of its own. The four girls who lack maternal nurturance get older and have access to drugs and alcohol to comfort their touch-starved bodies. They touch themselves. Before they starve or binge or purge, they touch each other. Before they cut, burn, or bang, they meet their desperate needs with siblings, pets, or anything warm and soft. Little girls without maternal affection are especially vulnerable to those who might take advantage of them. They don't recognize inappropriate touch because it's better than no touch. In this way, early sexual abuse may go decades without discovery. Filled with shame, women tell me stories of how they didn't mind sitting on an uncle's lap or touching a grandfather's penis.
Oh my God.
Even though they knew something was wrong, they rubbed up against their brothers or sisters, or mattresses, chairs, and tables, like food. Orgasm medicates
Oh my
emotional
God.
starvation. Caroline's mother sent her away to summer camp when she was very young. Quote, I hated the bugs, the lake, and the slimy, awful food. It was like a bad dream. Caroline remembers her summers craving grape soda and Snickers bars and touch. She says, I stared at the girls who had long, pretty hair and seemed so confident. I wanted to be just like them, to make them like me. I did anything. Sometimes we would sneak into an empty cabin. We kissed and touched each other. It was amazing. I never wanted it to stop. I hear stories like this often. Young girls curling up in the dark refuge of sleepovers, privately exploring each other, grasping for affection before daylight returns and brings them back to their cold, rejecting mothers. Erotic affection between girls often has little to do with sexual orientation and frequently stems from touch deprivation. We are
That makes a
resourceful
lot of
creatures,
sense.
and one way or another, as we grow and develop, we find ways to meet essential human needs. Almost no one talks about girls and masturbation, yet this is one of the first and strongest substitutes little ones find to replace a mother's touch. Self-stimulation, like thumb sucking, is a resourceful way to regulate fear when you're hungry for comfort. Unwanted touch. Not all maternal touch feels good. When mom's touch is icky, sexual, or intrusive, aggressive, it's tragic. To cope, daughters shut down the desire for human closeness. The shutdown response isn't a decision. It's a body-based reaction to violation. Mothers bathe, feed, dress, and undress their daughters. These intimate moments teach a little girl about her body and her worth. When maternal touch is disrespectful in any way, it leaves a lasting impact. In her book, A Mother's Touch, Julie Brand writes about being molested by her mother. She recalls nap times and how it felt strange to have her mother in her bed, touching her body. But there was no force or physical pain. When I work with women who share similar backgrounds, they describe their mother's touch as icky or heavy, but they don't identify it as abuse, particularly when it didn't hurt, but also because a mother's touch is normal or familiar. When daughters experience inappropriate touch from their mothers, shame keeps them silent.
That is so
As
interesting.
adults, these women feel very little desire to be close to their mothers. Driven by duty, they may remain helpful, loyal, and close, but relief comes when their mother dies. Relief is not the same thing as healing. Without intervention, these women may unconsciously repeat a mother's touch with unhealthy partners and self-injury. When women speak of sexual abuse, the perpetrator is usually a male family member. Dr. Christian Northrup's groundbreaking book, Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, linked father-daughter sexual abuse with future sex and love addiction. Similarly, in Women, Sex, and Addiction, author and therapist Charlotte Davis Castle connected sexual abuse to addictive love and sex. Like Northrop, Castle points to men. Quote, "The role fathers play in the development of female sex addiction cannot be overstated. Little girls take their cues from their dads. They want that special energy, the light in daddy's eyes, to be directed toward them. The ache for a warm and affectionate dad who did not sexualize the relationship is deeply etched in the hearts of most women." End of quote. While I agree with Castle that a little girl wants to feel special to her father, her assertion that girls take their cues from dad reflects a blindness to the primacy of the mother-daughter relationship. If a daughter is nurtured, protected, and guided by her mother, she's less vulnerable to her father's unhealthy behaviors. And she may not need as much of his time or encouragement. His love is a bonus, but she's already steady from her mother's love. Hassel herself seems to recognize this later in the book as she writes about her obsession with a lover, Sam. Quote, "I knew that my attraction to Sam had reawakened the part of me that still felt terribly wounded by my mother." Hassel's process reflects what I've seen over and over again. Identifying maternal neglect or abuse doesn't happen until later in life. It's as if we are protected from knowing until we're truly ready to know. Perhaps getting angry with a father for our difficulties is easier than pointing to mom because our culture allows us to identify men as abusive before women. Or maybe it's even more primitive than that. Psychologically, it might be more threatening to lose a mother's approval than a father's. Most certainly, it's a mix of these complicated factors. Intimacy and tolerance. Painful, shameful, or non-existent maternal touch may lead to touch aversion in close adult relationships. Women talk about having automatic responses to romantic partners that seem to come out of nowhere, like an allergic reaction. I call this involuntary reaction intimacy intolerance. When someone gets too close, intimacy intolerance causes you to feel a little sick. Their emotional proximity feels disgusting or irritating. In Naked in Public, Stacy Sprout does a remarkable job of describing intimacy intolerance. Quote, "I usually hated touching other people. Whenever I tried it, I felt an odd prickly sensation and an urgent impulse to jerk my hand away." For Stacy, touching someone created a, quote, "sour, hot feeling that covered an ever-yawning, excruciating maw of need." End of quote. If the concept of intimacy intolerance resonates for you, it may be that you feel hungry for a certain type of love, but are mystified by what keeps you from having it. Maybe you find solace in fantasy. The chemical changes in your body that come with imagining a perfect lover are enough. If you go toward relationships, you may be drawn to avoidant partners or friends because they won't threaten your unconscious intimacy threshold. For you, avoidant partners and friends are better than people who would suffocate you.
The next chapter is called Toxic Waters. These two chapters were really good. So chapters 5, 6, and 7 are kind of short. So I think, let me look. actually, chapter 5 is short, and then chapter 6 is long. What time is it now? Okay, we'll start on chapter 5 tomorrow, and we'll do chapter 5 and 6. And then the next day, we'll do chapter 7 and 8. Because chapter 6 is like an hour and a half long. It's about protection, which I think is going to be a really good chapter. These chapters were really informative. I learned a lot of things that I didn't already know. So I'm happy to be able to learn these things that I didn't already know. And then it was interesting to hear the different psychological information about babies and not letting them cry it out and that sort of thing. Like, that was so interesting to hear, because I was taught, just let them cry it out. They'll eventually cry themselves to sleep, and that's not a good thing now. Okay. And now I feel bad that I let my daughter and my son cry it out. I feel terrible about that now. Obviously there's nothing that I can do, but I wish that if I had known about this before, I would have definitely nurtured my children a little bit better. And hopefully, if you are listening to the book and you don't have children, but you're thinking about children, hopefully listening to this book will help you understand how to better nurture relationship with your brand new baby. So much good information. Okay, Linda, I will look into the book about Chris Watts. We have quite a few books already on our roster, but I will look into that one. I'm going to look at it right now. You said it's called Letters from Christopher? I don't see that, Linda. I see the Schmurders of Christopher Watts. I don't see letters from. So, are you sure that that's the name of it? I see The Perfect Father, My Daddy is a Hero, Blood and Marriage, The Family Next Door. But nothing about letters from Christopher. But if you can figure out the name of the book, I will put it on my wish list. And once we get done with all of the other books that we have on the roster, I will go ahead and purchase that one so that we can do that one after we're done. I'm going to go because I still need to give my dog a walk and get in the shower. Thank you guys so much for joining and hanging out with me. I have so much fun listening and learning with you all. So thank you. And we'll be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope to see you there.